KATC Weather Lab. Here's Rob's forecast.
Welcome back. Well, breaking news tonight is Hurricane Dorian back up to a major hurricane, Category 3 storm, 115-mile-an-hour winds, and it's going to be a long night for portions of South Carolina going into tomorrow, and then North Carolina as we head into Friday. After that, the system moving out to sea, and hopefully the tropics quieting down for many land areas in the future, although it is quite busy in the Atlantic Basin. For us, just plain old hot. We'll get to that in just a bit, but first off, let's take a look at Hurricane Dorian as we're dialed into 3 radars on the East Coast right now, and you can see a pretty uniform, pretty symmetric circle here. And this is what we mentioned on the 5 and 6 o'clock news. Is I thought we were seeing a little bit better organized hurricane, especially when you look at the center. Notice how it's even gotten more circular on the last 6 hours. Now, the Doppler radars can't see this far out because it's too far away from land, but we can see enough that we know we have an eye and an eye wall here. It's about 30 miles in diameter or so. It is moving to the north, and it's got a little bit more real estate. It's probably going to stay Cat 3 for another 12 hours or so, and then begin to weaken as it gets closer to the coastline. And new tonight as well, tropical rain bands working their way into the extreme southeastern, northeastern part of southeastern Georgia as we get into South Carolina from Beaufort all the way through Charleston. Storm surge coming up here, and those heavier showers working their way all the way from Hilton Head on up through Myrtle Beach. So it's going to be a rough night as those tropical rain bands move in. Anywhere between 10 to 15 inches of rain. Isolated areas, maybe more from South Carolina on northward. Now, I did a quick look at some of the velocities here. This is what I did during the course of the 5 and 6 o'clock news, just to get an idea on the velocities. Now we're shooting a fair way out. But the highest winds right here, I interrogated a little bit earlier, was over 100, and it was over 100 here. Moving away from the Doppler, that's the red. Moving toward the Doppler, that's blue. And that's the whole principle of Doppler radar. And you can see how the numbers change as the imagery information updates every sweep. So here's the bigger picture as we look at Dorian, and again you can see all the moisture now working its way also into North Carolina, but this is where the main action is going to be overnight tonight through tomorrow morning, and then slowly moving northward. In its wake, high pressure has been building in. We have the remnants of Ferdinand that is now inland and dissipating, so that's the good news. In the wake of both of those systems, strong ridge of high pressure building way down into the Gulf of Mexico, so that's going to heat us up. And once you get that dry air in the Gulf, it'll take a while before it moistens back up, so I don't see significant rain chances anytime soon. So that's the remnants of Ferdinand, still producing some locally heavy rainfall, the Rio Grande Valley into Mexico, but farther to the east, it's all about Dorian. And even on the satellite imagery, you can see how that eye got better organized. This is a 12-hour loop, and you can see how the eye became clear again. We have these strong rain bands, in fact, very strong ones wrapping around where we couldn't see it on the radar. So we know this is a very potent system. And now back to Category 3, as we mentioned earlier, 115-mile-an-hour winds. It's moving to the north at 7, and then a gradual turn to the north-northeast, but it's going to give Charleston, Myrtle Beach hurricane force conditions, and several counties inland as well. Everything in red is where we have hurricane warnings, and then eventually clearing North Carolina as we head into early Friday, and then moving way out to sea thereafter. But if you're looking at hurricane force winds, well, this is what we have. Hurricane force winds moving into Charleston first thing tomorrow morning, Myrtle Beach as we head into tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening, then Wilmington, North Carolina. And notice that red extending pretty far inland, so gusts to 75 or better through Morehead City, through Nags Head, Kill Devil Hills, and Cape Hatteras before the whole system moves out to sea. And not only do you have the wind and the rain, but the storm surge is certainly going to be an issue. Not so much more now in Florida, but as you get up through South Carolina, up to a 5 to 8 foot surge, waves on top of that, so you're looking at 10 feet of water in some spots along the coastline, and the storm surge, depending on the wind, may not be as bad far farther to the north, but it's going to certainly be an issue, perhaps all the way up through the Maryland area. So that is pretty interesting as well. Elsewhere, as we get into the rest of the tropics, it is busy, but we don't see anything coming toward the Gulf. We've got to watch this one coming off the African coastline. There's a chance that may develop. Gabrielle could become a hurricane, stays in the Atlantic. This stays in the Atlantic, and of course you have Dorian. And as we look at our forecast map, we have a high and dry weather pattern over the next several days with temperatures getting well into the mid to upper 90s. So a warm evening ahead, 73 the low. Tomorrow, 96, 97 the high, so the heat continues to crank up, and we'll be pushing the upper 90s Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. By early next week, hopefully a little bit more moisture in the air to produce clouds, maybe an isolated shower, but pretty hard to find a day that's below 95 in that 10-day forecast.
Ooh, tough stretch. All right. Thank you, Rob.